Produced by the IH Sports Network. The Roundtable begins now.
Good Monday evening, everyone, and welcome to the IH Sports Network Roundtable. We are live from El Rey. We will be here for the next 2 hours. We certainly invite you to come out and join us if you would like tonight. We're here until 8 o'clock. I'm Ben Garrett, alongside the voice of the Indians, Tim Smith, the voice of the Highlanders, Rick Heaton. We got a lot coming your way tonight. We're going to talk to some Oneida High School soccer players. We're going to talk to Eric Henry, Scott High Soccer. We're going to talk to Kelsey Pike about her recent signing with Johnson University. And of course, what we're really excited about is our Legend of the Game segment featuring Sparky Woods a little bit later on tonight. Sparky's not going to be here with us, but we will feature the first part of our interview that Tim did with Sparky in Chapel Hill last week. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but that's what's coming up later tonight. We're looking forward to it all. But first, guys, let's start off by talking about high school football. Oneida did not have a game last week. The Indians were off, getting set for Monterey this week. Rick, Scott High goes to Clay County for a non-region game. 53-7 was the final. I'm just going to turn to you, and you give me your observations and takeaways from that game.
Where to start? That's the question. And the team, the coaching staff, they last week spent the week gearing up to go to Clay County. As everyone really knows, Coach Chris Harris was the offensive coordinator at Clay County last year. So we traveled to Clay County. They have a first-year new coach. We have a first-year coach in Coach Harris. And Coach Harris, this game really meant a lot to him. He focused heavily on it. He wanted to play some gamesmanship to see what was going to happen there. All the very first offensive snap that Clay County had. The idea was for our nose guard to, on the snap or on the sound, to hit the center. Except he drove the center about 5-6 yards deep. Nobody anticipated the fact. We thought it'd just be an offside call, but the officials right away, they showed us what the Yellow Hankies could do, and it was a 15-yard personal foul penalty. And I think that surprised most everybody because you're just thinking, hey, the kid jumped off sides on a fake snap. And that really set the tone. There were a lot of Hankies thrown. It seemed like we finally ended the game with about 125 yards of penalty yardage. 125
yards, all of that in the first half.
In the first half. And there were some other 15-yard penalties that were negated because of each team having penalties. So, I mean, easily we could have gone over 150, 160 yards of penalties. The difference in the second half, the officials, they were just like the clock, the running clock. The officials wanted to move on. Let's not slow it down. Let's get out of here. The biggest takeaway I have is the offense still trying to find a way to move the ball, to try to move the ball into the other team's territory and get into the end zone. We're having trouble with that. What we practice through the week is not translating to Friday nights. Interesting statistic here. The 7 games that we've played, Highlanders have averaged 12.4 points per game. The opposition have scored 313 points. That's an average of 44.7 a game. As long as we are falling behind early, I don't know if it's pressure. I don't know if it's just the fact that maybe we fall off a little bit. We're never going to catch up. That's at least, of those 7 games, that's at least 6 of those. I think we've trailed by at least 30 points at halftime. And to overcome that, it's going to take a monumental effort. I know we talk about it all the time. Don't play the games on paper, comparing scores with other opponents, how much they beat a team by and so forth and so on. It's played out there on the field. And the Highlanders are going to have to line up and play out on the field. I said after the game, I'll start passing the sheet down the line to my committee about our player of the week, our lineman of the week. And as I was passing it down this way, I sort of looked at Ben and I said, I'm not sure we have either of those. And a spurt here, a big play touchdown there in the second half. A lineman here that excels, a defensive player that makes a couple of touchdown-saving tackles. That's there. But 4 quarters, consistent offense, hard-nosed defense has eluded us again through 7 games.
And I thought one of the most disappointing aspects of Friday's game, we talked about last week, the progress that had been made defensively. Maybe it's not showing up on the scoreboard, but the tackling form had gotten better, and some strides have been made, but that didn't show up on Friday night at Clay County.
It did not. I mean, they scored on every offensive possession. The previous week against Gibbs, we had 2 or 3 stops, especially fourth down stops, and we were able to get the ball back. Still didn't score against Gibbs, but the fact the defense, they were there, they knew the situation in the game, they had the presence, they played hard, they got the stops. I think Gibbs, in my mind, once again, got to watch them on the field, but I think Gibbs a better football team than I expected out of Clay County. After all, that was a 25-0 victory last season for Clay County, a year that we really didn't have players. We had a whole bunch of injuries. Not that we don't have injuries this year. We do. And to add one more point to what I was going to say, speed at the running back position. When Will Young went down with a knee, when Michael Bond broke his leg, speed in the backfield we have no speed there now, and we're trying to just plug it away with Whaley, with Strunk, maybe with Fitzgerald occasionally in the backfield. We don't have all the pieces in the key positions that we really need them, and like I say, injuries can kill you, and no matter what point of the season that they come down in, they can just change everything that you worked for 3 months on preparing for the first game in August.
It was an ugly game on Friday night. Obviously, everything that you're talking about made it an ugly game, 53-7. It was not a competitive game, but it was an ugly game from a sportsmanship standpoint. We mentioned the personal fouls. The game started with a personal foul penalty. Both teams had a lot of personal fouls in the first half, but it was off the field. The bigger sportsmanship issues, there was a lot of jawing going on the sideline. The athletic directors, maybe we may get a chance to talk to Eric Henry a little bit later about this and get his perspective. There was a heated confrontation at midfield during the half. And then to me, this is my take, but I thought the worst part of it all was probably 40 seconds, I think it was, 40 seconds remaining in a running clock, a 47-7 game, and Clay County took a timeout to stop the clock and set up one more touchdown with their starters. And by the way, I would have understood it had it been their backups, and you want to get those guys some playing time, but that was not a good look. So, not much going on. Not only was Oneida off.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you mentioned the word gamesmanship about the beginning of that game, and I know your coach comes from the Middle Tennessee area, or at least has been coaching the Middle Tennessee area, and that reminded me just a couple of incidents, and I'm not going to go into the long, detailed explanation of it, but one in football, one in basketball. That seems to be a thing with some of the Middle Tennessee schools. I think I've seen it several times, and I distinctly remember kind of a headset deal when we played Trousdale County here that I feel like allowed them to really distract Oneida right off the bat. And then I also remember one year Coach West going over to Clark Range with a really strong roster, and there was some shenanigans with the roster book, and all of a sudden Clark Range had a 2-point lead. They checked the book, and our lineup wasn't official, and so they got 2 free throws, and they got the ball back and scored. So we're down 6-0 before we even touch the ball. So I think that's something that goes on there that maybe, I don't know if East Tennessee coaches should try to match that and employ it, but it does seem to be something that happens when you cross over into the central time zone.
I was not there for the Clark Range incident, but I've heard a lot about that through the years. I do remember that 2008 semifinal game against Trousdale County very well. So not only was Oneida off this week, but Monterey was off. Rockwood was off. York was off. The only game in Region 2-2A was Wartburg. They defeated Jellicoe 40-6, which has no bearing on the region standings. Wartburg also on the outside looking in at the playoff picture. Not mathematically eliminated, but they've got to beat Monterey and Rockwood to get in. So that's not likely. But as you look at this region and the way it sets up, we're going to talk some Scott High score or some Scott region scores from last week in just a moment. York obviously still the team to beat. For Oneida going to Monterey this Friday night, we'll talk more about this game obviously later in the show. This is a huge one on Friday night. Monterey is currently sitting in second place. Oneida is sitting in fourth place. And if you want to avoid, we've talked about this so many times already, but if you want to avoid that Week 11 trip up to Hampton, this is a must-win game on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's Oneida really, this game could solidify everything Friday night for everyone. If Monterey wins, it's pretty much over.
Right.
It's going to be York, Monterey, Rockwood, Oneida. If Oneida, just like they did last year, can come off of the loss to Rockwood and be a chaos team and come up with a win at Monterey, well, pretty much still York is pretty much solidified there. But Monterey, Rockwood, and Oneida, then a lot of stuff could happen. But, you know, it goes to the regular season, which we probably wouldn't have a big advantage in. So, but you have a couple of games left. You know, I saw the Coalfield score Friday night, and here's a Yellow Jacket team that just is rolling downhill right now. And we got them on week 10. So, I mean, if you're trying to get tiebreakers, you got your hands full. But Oneida's had 2 weeks to sit on that Rockwood loss that easily could have been a Rockwood win. I say easy for me to say, but I mean, it was back and forth. We don't turn it over 3 times, and that game looks a lot different. You know, last year, I think everybody picked Monterey, and probably this year everybody's picking Monterey, and the Indians are going to try to prove people wrong again.
And to kind of set that up, to expand on what you mentioned, Monterey's 1-1 going into this game. Oneida's 1-2. This is Oneida's final region game. Rockwood's also 1-1. Oneida does not control their own destiny this Friday night. If they lose, they're locked into fourth. If they, well, not locked in. Wartburg could still, you know, create some havoc, but that's a very long shot. Oneida's probably fourth with a loss at Monterey. If Oneida wins, then all of a sudden they find themselves rooting for Rockwood to beat York in Week 10, because otherwise you've got that 3-way tie. And it goes to the overall record. As you mentioned, Oneida right now would be at a disadvantage there. So I think that up first you got to win to give yourself a chance.
Yes.
And then you want Rockwood to beat York and let those two teams battle it out in a tiebreaker. Well, it wouldn't be a tiebreaker. It would be Rockwood number 1, York number 2, and then it would be Oneida number 3 and Monterey number 4. So that's what's got to happen. All right, let's swing over here to Rick, to our region, Scott High's region. I traveled with you on Friday night, so I consider that our region now, I guess.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Clay County beating Scott High 53-7. Obviously, that was a non-region game. Didn't impact the region standings. Anderson County on Thursday night defeats Gibbs 55-24. Not a surprise there. That was the only region game that was played. So Anderson County maintaining their their position at the top of the region. Then you had Carter. Big win for Carter. They continue to impress. They defeated a really good Morristown West team 13-7. And then Knox Central, again, not a surprise here. They defeat South Dole 49-20. So as we head into the final 3 weeks of this season, Anderson County is the only unbeaten team left. And then still behind them, it's just a big jumble right now.
I ran the scenario out, and in my mind, I did what I said you shouldn't do. I played the games on paper. And I thought, well, you know, I could see Fulton, Gibbs, and Carter all finishing tied. And then you have to start figuring out number of total wins and everything like that. And, of course, the one looking on the outside is Fulton right now. They've got the 4 total losses. But I could see that playing out where they would all have the same region record. If the teams I think will win and carry out the mission, they'll do that. I mean, so it could be really interesting. Anderson County finished 5-0 in the region. Not much doubt in that. So you talk about what finishing 4th in the region means, like with Oneida, maybe going to Hampton. Well, the trip is to Greenville if you're in our region. And
not the trip you want to make.
No. I mean, you got Greenville and then you got Elizabethton. Despite Elizabethton obviously being off this year, you don't want to have to go up there to Betsy and play a game against Sean Whitten's Hurricanes up there. I mean, so, I mean, I see the region being very tight when we get to week 10, and whoever chokes and whoever doesn't that night will be sitting maybe at number 2 by themselves, and the other 3 and 4 looking at the road trips.
2 things jump out to me. Number 1, South Dole still on the outside looking in at the playoff picture, which I think surprises all of us. We thought they would be higher than that. The other thing is Fulton, they've worked their way now into second place in the standings, and they can take a big step forward this Friday night. But who's standing in their way? Scott High. The Highlanders going to St. Mary's on Friday night to face Fulton. So that game takes on some significance in the region standings.
It does. And once again, the key, you stop Fulton, you've got to pretty much shut down the quarterback, Jackson, because if you can't tackle him, rule number one, you got to tackle him. It's a proven fact. He's been held below, 2 weeks ago, he was held below 50 yards, and Fulton lost. So if you can tackle him and contain him, then suddenly you've slowed down the Fulton offense. He's a somewhat accurate passer, but he's got the wheels. Fastest cat probably in Knox County right now on football teams. And there's a lot of them out there. We've seen so many of them.
All right, we'll talk a little bit more football later on. We're going to switch to soccer. Before we do that, I want to give out a shout to some Scott High players because these guys are here every week. Hugo Henry is here. Alton Whaley is here. Bull Creek Zane Lau is here. Those guys never miss. Rylan Griffin's also here. Jaden Mays, Clayton Carroll, Gavin Terry. Somebody's got their back turned to me. Jesse Bowles. So those guys, I want to give a shout-out to them for being here. By the way, there's also a lot of Oneida soccer players here. We'll get to that a little bit more in the next segment because we're going to talk to some of those players when we come back right after this. Welcome back to the Roundtable on the IH Sports Network. We are live from El Rey alongside Tim Smith and Rick Keaton. I'm Ben Garrett. A lot more to come tonight, including Sparky Woods. Not in person, but at Sparky Woods video. You're going to want to stick around for that. We've got Eric Henry still to come. We've got our cheerleader segment. They're going to help us pick the winners of this week's games upcoming. But first, let's flip over to soccer, and we start with Oneida tonight. We've got 3 juniors, and I'll start on my right. Since she's solo, and you guys stuck her over here by Rick, we got Ayla Sims, goalkeeper for Oneida. And on this side, we've got Rory Blevins, and we've got Allie Smith. Now, you guys are here because you are the 3 juniors who have full-time starting roles on this Oneida team. So just to let everybody know why you 3 guys are here. We've gone through the seniors, and now we're down to the juniors. So we're going to start with you, Ayla. You guys started off this season, I'm going to say a little bit disappointing. I don't think any of you guys were happy with the start. You were 0-2-1. You tied against Kingston, lost a couple of games, but then it started to click for you. You've won 9 of your last 12, coming off a tie against Cumberland County, really strong 2A team. How has the season gone? How do you feel about this thing as you go into the postseason tomorrow night?
I think that originally we weren't really worried because we started with losses last year at the beginning of the season, but I think that we've just gelled together as a team and bonded, and finally everything's starting to click, like you said.
Allie, this one's for you.
Okay.
You guys are going into Rockwood tomorrow night. That will be a home game. You've already gone on the road to Rockwood, defeated them 7-0. Pretty easy win. I mean, that was one that was pretty well wrapped up by halftime. Now you get them again. I know from a coaching standpoint, a coach would tell you to never take anything for granted. What's your mindset? Because tomorrow is do or die. It's win or you go home, your season's over. What's the team's approach to tomorrow night?
I definitely think that we can't overlook Rockwood, but we just have to have the confidence for one, but we can't have any letdowns, and we have to play hard, and we have to play up to our capability. And if we do that, I think we'll be fine.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to ask you about what comes after that because Phil Newport would jump on me, so we can talk about it. If we were here Wednesday night, we could talk about that. We won't talk about that, but we will say that tomorrow night is a semifinal game. So if you win tomorrow night, you get into the championship game, which is obviously where you want to be because then you extend your season. Not only are you playing Thursday night, but you're playing in the regionals as well. Now, Rory, let's switch to you. This goes for all 3 of you guys, by the way. You all 3 started your high school soccer careers at one position, and you wound up playing a different position. For you, it's sweeper. Allie's on defense. You started out, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Allie, you were a wing to start out. Am I correct? As a freshman?
I played forward and wing both a little bit.
Okay, and I don't think that you anticipated being the team's starting keeper.
He didn't know where to stick me.
So it turned out pretty well. Okay, and we're going to come back to that. Rory, let's start with you at the sweeper position. You were a forward as a freshman, and then you switched things up, and now you played on the defensive side of the ball. Talk about adapting to that role, and do you like that role better than you like being up front?
Well, it was a big change. But when Phil asked me, he was just asking people, would you play sweeper? Would you play sweeper? And everybody was saying no. And I was like, well, if you need me there, I'll play there. So he stuck me back there, and I really like it. I mean, sweeper is just fun because it's not one of those positions you have to have those perfect ball skills, and every pass is perfect. As long as you put your whole heart into it, you'll be fine.
Now, for people who don't know soccer as well, which is probably, that's you?
Yep, I need this sweeper definition.
There you go. That's what I was going to ask.
It's the very last person in the back. You're in the center of the field, and it's you and then the goalie.
So if they get past you, it's all up to Ayla.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's why you stick her over there by herself.
Yeah, we don't like her.
And
But you don't want her to have to work. You want to get it done yourself, right?
Yeah.
and if you leave Ayla on an island by herself, Phil Newport will call you out in his post-game interview, by the way. And you've been called out.
Yeah.
And you've probably been called out as well, Ellie.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure. Okay, so Rory, other than yourself, who is the best sweeper that you know in high school soccer?
Like anytime? Like
Currently.
currently?
Because I know the answer, and I want to see if we jive on this.
Alana.
That is Alana Stalworth from
Cumberland Gap.
Cumberland Gap. Probably a Division I prospect. Does she intimidate you when you go up against her? Now, obviously, you're on opposite ends of the field. So you're not playing directly against her, but is that intimidating?
No,
Not at all.
because she's just aggressive. She has nothing for her. She just tries to, like, tackle you. As long as you're not afraid of her, then you just, bam. You
So
take the hit and go on with life.
So there you go. She's not that good after all.
Yeah.
So I just build her. I'm just hyping her for no reason.
No, she is good. I'm just saying. Like, you can't be afraid of her. That's how you get beat.
I got you. Okay, so Allie, we talked about the position changes. You were up front to start off your high school career. Now you've also got a defense. You were probably the fastest person on the field. Well, I don't know if that's fair. You've got some teammates sitting right back here who are pretty fast in their own right, but you're fast. And so Oneida could use your speed up front, but they also use your speed very well in the back. Talk about making that change, and where would you rather be on the field, up front or in the back?
Okay, well, I think Phil put me in the back because I'm not necessarily the best soccer player on the field, but he says that, you know, I work hard and I'm fast, so that speed is helpful in the back. But up in the front, some of those girls have really developed ball skills. I just don't have that as much. I just have the drive. All I know is that I just need to get the ball away from the offense. That's all I got to do. And I mean, I probably would prefer to be up in the offense. I like scoring. I think everybody does. But, I mean, I'm where I need to be for the team, and I'm good wherever I can help. So.
Okay, now let's swing back over here so you don't feel like that you're being neglected.
No, she's the most valuable person on the team. I mean,
By the way, for anybody who does not know, Ayla Sims is Dwight Murphy's granddaughter.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well,
Did he teach you to play goalie?
Oh, heck no.
Then there you go. You listen to him on other things,
Mom
but not
claims
that.
that.
Yeah, good. Okay.
and let's not do a disservice to Jordan Sims. She's Jordan's mother. Now, I mentioned Dwight
Or
because
Jordan is her
Jordan's her
mother,
mother.
if you want to say it correctly.
Sorry,
So,
you're Jordan's daughter.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, straighten me out. I mentioned Dwight because he's a former county mayor. You know, he's executive director at TCAT, so he's kind of an important figure. But Jordan is principal at Oneida Elementary School. She's kind of important too. But anyway, that's just, I'm chasing rabbits there. You're the keeper. We talked about a moment ago. I don't know that anybody saw you being keeper. I think everybody felt like Claire Burris would be the keeper through her senior season, and then they would need another keeper after this year. But here you are, and this is your second year being in the goal full-time. Talk about that.
Well, coming into high school, I didn't play middle school. I gave it up for softball. And I just saw when Claire got hurt, I just saw the opportunity, and I was like, this is probably my only chance to get to play because I don't have any ball skills to save my life. And so I was like, might as well.
And she worked really hard to get that spot. Like, she had a lot of competitors, and she worked very hard.
She did, and she had to prove herself to do it.
Well, I'm going to say this. Don't hold this against me. But the first time that I saw you step into the goal, I thought she's too short. She's just too short. You know, maybe she's got another 4 or 5 inches on her. But now let's look at the schedule. You guys, this season, go ahead, Tim Smith.
Well, I was just going to say, looking at the schedule, so defense, y'all are all three, your defense. It's your job to not let people score. Had a rough game. The last loss was Cumberland Gap. Gave up 5 goals in that game. Since that game a month ago, you haven't given up 5 goals combined. You've gotten focused. You're on a mission. And this Rockwood team last time didn't even find the net. I don't know, did they even get past you? Were you just sitting back there leaning against the post the whole time?
Pretty much,
There
they
you
just
go.
hit long balls.
So
Picked 'em up.
it was like life for the Cumberland Gap goalie then, right? She doesn't have to do anything. There you go. So so if you guys do your job, Ayla can just relax a little bit, and I'd like to see that for her. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's where I was going with
Wait
that.
just a minute. Before you go to that, let's also talk about Ayla's grandmother growing up in Helenwood, just around the loop from where I grew up, and so.
Seems like key information.
Her great uncle's a good friend of mine. So, I mean, there we go.
Boy, your relative's going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Her mother's my sister, by the way, so she didn't get any mention. Your schedule, you look at your schedule, the season that you guys have had, 7 shutouts, 4 other games where you get up 1 goal. That doesn't happen without them and the rest of your teammates, but it goes back to the point that I was making. When I first saw you step out there, I thought, no way, she's too short. You've proven to be a very good goalkeeper, and so you've done a good job. Have you surprised yourself, or did you know I can do this? I got this.
I just felt like if I put the work into it, I could be the best in the district, the region. If I put in the work, because I believed in myself and they believed in me, and I just knew I could. The sky was the limit, even though of my size.
Now, I'm going to, this is just whoever wants to chime in here, chime in here. You guys have played behind some outstanding seniors for the past 3 years. Several of them are here tonight. I see, well, I'm not even going to start naming them because I'll leave somebody out. But you got 6 seniors. All of them start. They're very, very good. What has it been like playing behind this group, and what's it going to be like next year? This season's not over. You got a lot left to play for. But as you look ahead to next year, what's it going to be like when you guys have to step up and become the leaders of the team?
I think that a big thing is those girls have played together for a long time. I mean, they play club together. They're very advanced soccer players, and we're going to have to step up with our passing and with a lot of skills and communication to fill in the gap when they're gone. But playing underneath them has been awesome because I don't know that much about soccer, but playing under them and watching them play and how well they work together kind of helps the rest of the team flow in the same pattern.
Rory, add to that.
Well, I think when next year we will have to step up, and there's people we will have to fill gaps for sure, because they are going to leave big ones, big holes, because those girls are just so good, and they've been good since we were little. They've been those top dogs, and everybody knew senior year those girls are going to be good.
And we talked to Phil Newport, and he said 3 of these kids who are seniors have got aspirations of playing next year, and they're going to have opportunities to. So half of this senior class at least is probably going to be playing college soccer next season. How about you guys collectively? Any of you guys have any aspirations of going on, or are you still focused on the high school game at this point?
Probably still focused on high school. I mean, I'm probably not going to get any offers or anything, so that's not really my motive.
That's just a lot of work. I'd rather just focus on college.
Honesty, you lucky.
I mean, I thought is it funny?
So instead of being soccer players, if you had to name it right now, what are you going into, Allie? What are you going to, when you go to college, do you know what you want to go do?
Marine biology.
There you go. Now, what about you, Roy?
Dental hygienist.
Dental hygienist. What about it, Ayla?
Sports psychology.
Awesome.
Okay.
Achievers. You
That's
brought
right.
on the 3 best achievers I think we've had this season.
Yep.
Well, I don't know. This one can't even look over here at this table without giggling so much.
I mean, if I look over there, I'm going to do the same. I feel like.
Okay, so we talked a lot about family. So as we wrap this up, we talked about Ayla's family. We talked a little bit about Rory's family. I want to talk about your family because there are a lot of common names in Scott County, but probably Tim Smith is the most common name. There are 4 Tim Smiths at least that I know of, and there may be more that I don't know of. Who is the coolest Tim Smith that you know?
That's kind of
You better go with the right.
now.
Look, I'm not giving you an allowance. You better answer this one right.
Probably my dad.
There you go.
All right, Dr. Tim Smith,
Yeah.
Grace Primary Care. Okay, guys, tomorrow night, Rockwood District Semifinals, 6:30. Am I right? 6:30 kickoff at Jane Terry Hoffman Field. Good luck, and get past that, and then good luck on Thursday because I know you guys are going to be playing on Beyond tomorrow night. All right, that's Oneida soccer players Rory Blevins, Allie Smith, Ayla Sims. When we come back, we're going to continue to talk soccer as Eric Henry joins us from Scott High. Welcome back to the Roundtable on the IH Sports Network. We are at El Rey. We are just halfway through. We're not even halfway through. So if you want to come out and join us tonight, we certainly invite you to do so. We have talked Oneida soccer. Now we're going to talk Scott High soccer as we're joined by Lady Highlander head coach Eric Henry. And Coach Henry, your team coming off a season-ending loss on Saturday night to Kingston, 3-0 the final. I know things did not end the way that you wanted them to, because obviously you had your sights set on a rematch against Anderson County tomorrow night in the championship game. Talk about that game Saturday, and then talk about your season.
That was everybody's plan going into Saturday, was to be playing on Tuesday. And the girls were focused. We got up, practice Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. I told them, I said, I know you guys like to usually lay around on Saturdays, but if I don't get you up and get you out of bed, you're not going to play well. And so we had a good practice. It was crisp outside, and they all had their hoodies pulled tight around their faces. I didn't know who anybody was. But had a good practice. Everybody was there. We worked on PKs afterwards with 10 shooters and Bella because, going into tournament, always a chance that there could be that in the postseason or just in the game as well. And we've not done a great job of finishing PKs this season, but we worked on that. And, yeah, it was disappointing, especially for those seniors to not win, from the lights aside. That's one thing, but they fully intended to be playing tomorrow night, and I did too. But Kingston came out, kind of put about 3 white jerseys on Chloe, and we made a little bit of adjustment at halftime, tried to push more people up towards the end of the first half. But, we had looks, had opportunities, just didn't finish any of them.
Now, if anybody looked at a box score from this game, it was a 2-0 game at halftime. Kingston won the second half 1-0 in the 9 minutes that you got to play before the lights went out. You look at that and you say, well, Kingston won both halves. But it was actually a different game in the second half. Your team had opportunities in the first half. Yeah. But they really had opportunities in the second half. And
really amped up their energy the second half, that 9 minutes that we got in. Of course, the first goal was an own goal off of a corner kick. And, no one's fault on that. And I talked to the girl, and I saw some of the seniors. I think maybe Liv was talking to her after the game because she was tore up because she had, let one glance off over into the net. She was just defending. But it was good to see, a senior whose season is now and career is now over talking to a younger player, trying to console them that, hey, it's not your fault. That's just one of the things that happen. It was the kind of thing I told her, too. I said, you just got to position yourself better and do well. But, yeah, we were a lot more aggressive that very short second half that we had. But, we weren't tired. I've kind of eased back on our running and conditioning the last 3 years. We still run bleachers. We just don't run as many of them. We still run about a mile, just to get warmed up before we stretch and things like that. But we try to slack off as the season progresses so our legs don't get so heavy. I think that's what we ran into, it would have been 3 years ago, I guess it was, with Julie Butts and Abby and Tori and all those girls over at Livingston. We had a really good squad that year, and just seemed like we kind of ran out of gas, but we played a lot of games too. So I've tried to adjust that so that as we get further on in the season that we're fresher longer.
Last season you guys won just 3 games, and you talked about that a lot with your team coming into this year. You said that was unacceptable for Scott High Soccer. That's not where you want your program to be. Now, you only won 5 games this year, but it was a short schedule, first of all. You didn't have a lot of games this year. Had one of those games canceled that would have been against Carter, but you won 5 games. One of those was a win over Kingston, which was huge. But the other thing that I look at is that with the exception of a couple of games at the start of the season, all of your losses were very competitive. I mean, you went to CAK and took them to the wire. You played Alcoa and you took them to the wire. Those are 2 really, really proud programs, and you were right there with them. What about the step forward that your team took?
Some of the best soccer we played this season was over at CAK, and it was one of those, I think it was maybe one game that week, went in over there, and Caitlin fell backing up on 1 goal, went over her. So you look at that, it's 2-1 as opposed to, somebody sprinting by a defender that was, on the ground and shooting on Bella. But, yeah, we were in a lot of games. Some games we weren't. I told the girls, and that was kind of what I had told them the last 3 weeks. I said, guys, you have everybody, whoever's out there, whichever 11 it is at any given time, everybody has to play their best soccer for us to be competitive, because that's just where we were as a team. Got great players, I got good athletes on the field. I got speed. I got people that can control the ball. I may not have a whole lot of depth, but everybody has to be on for 80 minutes because we play a lot of good teams. And when you play a strong schedule, that's what you're going to run into.
Talk about the seniors that you're losing, what they meant to this team and what they meant to this program for the last 4 years.
Well, coming in, those girls as freshmen, Chloe got some time, Katie got a little bit, Liv got a lot, excuse me, and Zoe got some on the wings just because, different attributes for each of them. Zoe and Chloe really fast. Liv had great touch, and she could shoot from anywhere. I don't know. I think you were at the no, you were not at the Fulton game. She was about 42 yards out when she shot one over the keeper. That's a pretty stout leg for somebody that's about 5'4" not, and that's she. And then the goal kicks against Kingston the first match. I mean, she's putting them at the half line almost, and that's a long ball for a young lady. So Liv. With her skills, she has good dribbling skills as well. And I said, Katie didn't get as many minutes. She was a little bit more timid as a freshman. She also grew from her freshman to her sophomore year about 4 inches. So that was a difference for her. And Abby got some time on the wing. Abby Reynolds did. So those girls as freshmen all had minutes, and they were playing with a lot of juniors and seniors that had played a lot of minutes themselves. But, I've told you before, it doesn't matter to me how old you are, what grade you're in, what your last name is. I'm putting people that hustle out there regardless, because at some point those people are going to be next year's squad, and so you have to get them on the field as much as you can. While I always have enough for a JV team, there's usually only about 2 or 3 schools that have enough for a JV team as well. So even though I've got enough to play, we can't find anybody to play unless they're 2 hours away or more than that. So plus, against Fulton, some different teams, we had an opportunity to put those younger players out and get them some work. But as far as what those young ladies mean, losing 6 starters, that's going to be hard regardless. But, I do have some young ladies coming up that showed a lot of promise this year. And, there's things we'll have to work on. There's holes we'll have to plug. But I think I told you in an interview after the game the other night, as far as, world-class young ladies, you won't find a better much than them. And I mentioned Hugo, he's over there. He's grown up with those girls. They're all about the same age, and so I look at them more than just soccer players to me. They're a lot more family to me than anything else. So appreciate them, and you can't say enough about them. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot because Ben's just trying to go me in to start crying over here. So,
well, everybody needs to see that Eric Henry has a heart, because most people think you don't.
I know. Well, if you were there for the Fulton game, I had told them, we had the coaches meeting that day, or that week on Tuesday, and I called Tony Duncan and I said, how much would it cost our friendship if you were to make me these plaques by Thursday night? And Tony's great. He just kind of laughed, but he did it. They were great. I stole pictures off of Jennifer Reynolds' Facebook of all the girls, and so that was the first time we were able to get the girls their plaques, for senior night, and it was great. He did a great job. There were pictures. He put balls for each year that they played, so they looked really snazzy. And I mentioned that at the beginning of Saturday's game. I said, we didn't get to talk about that much on senior night. I said, but all you girls, first team, all those starters, Caitlin, Defensive Player of the Year, Chloe, co-MVP. That's nice, and we have good players on our team. And so really proud of those girls and what they're able to accomplish. And I think those accolades speak for themselves as to what we have, because we have good players in our district. We got the Leander twins, one at AC, one at Clinton. We got a couple girls at Kingston that are just outstanding. And so for Chloe and Caitlin to come away with individual awards, very nice job for them. But I told the girls, to get back to my original story there, I said I had a little something to tell each of you as I gave you your plaque and rose, but I barely could get through just giving them their regular stuff, and I couldn't muster it. But I think Chloe was the last one. I kind of broke down, had to take my glasses off and wipe my eyes, because that was, you don't think about it, but 4 years, all of them played 4 years for me. And you go from June to mid-October with somebody, and I'm not the easiest guy to get along with or the easiest guy to please, but I could probably count on my thumbs the amount of eye rolls that I got from those 6 girls. And I keep saying 6. You know, Hannah Daggs had an injury; she didn't get to play, but this season. But you know, those girls are top notch in any category, whether it be in a classroom, at church, community. It doesn't matter to me.
So going into next year, you're going to be replacing all 6.
Yeah.
So it kind of reminds me of 2 years ago when you were actually replacing, I think, 7 starters.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be a rebuilding year next year. This is a reclassification year, so the district's going to look a little bit different. Looks like Kingston's going to be leaving you and going down to single A. So you know, it could be Alcoa, it could be Austin East, it could even be Campbell County. We don't know yet.
Well,
We've got to wait and see. But
I might play up if Alcoa's in the district, because the last 2 times that we've played them, I've got players that's been stomped and punched, so I'm out on those guys.
yeah, that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
And Phil Newport has
That's
been
no
talking about that
exaggeration.
for years
There's
as well.
literal
Yeah.
punch in the face and stomped while laying on the ground.
So what does your team have to do to improve to get ready for next June when they come in and the
We're gonna
offseason's
work
over and you go back to work?
a lot more on passes and touches. We did a better job of building the middle this year. Of course, we stacked another person in there. We only had one person up front. Most of the time, we kind of moved around with our lineup, but got to find the open person. We've got to find a hoss up front that's going to put it in the net. You know, Chloe done that for us this year. Ellie has in the past, but I had to move Ellie to the wing just because she's great at delivering the ball from the side. But Bella Sharp will be back in goal for us. You know, she was brokenhearted. And I, teased and told you and told Bella, she said, what can I do? This is at the end of last season to get better. I said, grow 2 or 3 inches. You'll be fine. And while she didn't do that, she really came out of her shell over at Clinton and AC. She came out on the top of the box. And, I mean, these girls are full speed dribbling, and she's taking the ball with her foot. So that's a great sign for a keeper when she's not afraid to face anybody. And those girls are, top scorers in the league. And she made a lot of good saves on them. So.
Okay, so to wrap things up, we're talking soccer, but let's switch to football. And I meant to ask you during the break if it was okay if I asked you about this, but I didn't because you were talking to Greg Bond. So I'm just going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Because Rick and I talked about this at the start of the show. Friday night, Scott High, Clay County. You and the Clay County Athletics Director had a little bit of a heated conversation at midfield. Can you go into any detail on that at all?
Well, let's see here. Hugo, Caitlin, Ron Burgundy. What's that mean? Stay classy.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
I had some guys over there on the fence heckling our players, and these are grown men. And I went over there to, I already called. And the referee had asked me, he said, hey, you need to talk to their AD. They've got guys on the fence. I'm like, okay. So I called him, and he said, I'll handle it at halftime. There's 4 minutes, 24 seconds left. And I'm like, that's probably not a good enough answer. Because at Scott High, we're classy. We handle stuff. If there is something wrong, we'll fix it, and we'll fix it right then. That's just the way it is with me and the way that we do things as administration. They just don't do that down there. They'd rather tell our fans to go around and not use the restroom after the game as opposed to saying, hey, guys, don't act like that. But, Whitehead asked me, he said, did it get fixed after halftime? I said, no, sir, it didn't. He said, okay, I'll put it in the report. I mean, there's just so much that I can do. I'm not on my field. Of course, I don't think we've ever had an incident like that at Scott High. We're heckling enough individual players out there or whatever teams that we had to call them down. But, I probably made more friends down there than I should have. But I'm not going to stand by and let grown men say things to 16, 17-year-old kids on the field trying to play, whether it be soccer, football. It don't matter to me. We're not going to do that.
All right. Scott High coach Eric Henry. Congratulations on it. I say congratulations. The season didn't end the way you wanted it to. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you something. That win over Kingston, that made the whole year. That was a thrilling win.
It was. That was exciting. If you were there, it was just, back and forth. Thought we had it in the bag. Then we kind of let up a little bit, which that was a great lesson for us to learn going into next year. You can't ever let up. And get a golden goal like that, which, if you're not a soccer fan, you don't know what all that means. But, the first one scores wins, and that's it. There's not going to be prolonged, move it back, have to, score a touchdown like there is in football. It's like first one, that's it. So it was a good win. We were glad for the girls.
All right, Scott High soccer coach Eric Henry. We'll step aside. When we come back, we're going to flip to basketball as we talk to Oneida Lady Indian Kelsey Pike. Welcome back to the Roundtable on the IH Sports Network, live from El Rey. We are now joined by Oneida Lady Indian Kelsey Pike, Oneida player this year, soon to be a Johnson University player. Kelsey signed and made it official with Johnson University next week. Tim, I'm going to let you just take it and talk to Kelsey and fill us in on what's going on with her career.
And I'll tell you, Greg Bond's like a good coach. He's already yelling at us about our spacing. When the floor is not spaced well, Kelsey, but that's what this is. So, Kelsey Pike going to be a senior coming into this year, and you have already signed with Johnson University. Now, I've been there. Beautiful campus. It's almost, I mean, it's like almost a small town right in that little campus.
Yeah.
What drew you to Johnson? Why was that the one that you don't even have to go through this year and look at other possibilities? Why Johnson?
I think the biggest thing was definitely Coach Bryan. I was going to follow him and go to Bryan College, and then he made that move. I made that visit there, and I was like, oh, my gosh, like, this is it. It was so beautiful. And then they have what I want to do. I want to go into business, and, playing basketball is just a plus because I'm not going to play basketball forever. So I do want to get, a good degree and stuff like that. They had that. I felt safe there, and, I just felt like I should go there. And I prayed about it, and I was like, yep, this is the one.
All right. Now tell me, Kelsey, because you've moved around on the court. You can play a lot of different places. Where do they envision you? What position are you going to be?
Basically, shooting guard.
Shooting guard.
Yep. I can shoot pretty well, I think.
I've seen that. I've seen that several times. What about what's their offensive style? Do they push up and down the floor like Coach West wants to do, or is it more of a setup?
Yeah, it's changing. So the previous teams, they weren't very good, so obviously they hired Coach Bryan to come in and change that. And his style of play is kind of like Coach West. He wants to run, he wants to go, shoot transition threes, stuff like that. So I think I'm going to adjust really well there, and because his style is just like Coach West, so I think that's a good fit for me.
So when you get into the half court, you'll still be having to work off screens and things like that. What's better for you? Would you rather get in transition, get the ball and shoot the three, or would you rather work on the offense, come off a screen and catch it, shoot the three? Or does it matter?
I guess it doesn't really matter, but I do like to, in transition, I like to spot up and shoot that three a lot, but coming off screens and stuff is all right too, so just whatever.
What about defensively? What's their style? Are they zone? Are they man-to-man? Does he mix it up? What's that look like?
I think man-to-man. I haven't really seen them like as much defensively, but I think it's going to be man-to-man, all up in your face, just like Coach West likes it too. So
okay,
I'm ready for that also.
So this year, obviously you're focused on being an Oneida Lady Indian this year, but also down the road you're going to be what's the mascot for Johnson University?
They're the Royals, so like tiger, lion.
I got you. Okay.
I don't really know.
So you're also going to be thinking about how you can get better for them. What's an area of your game that you think is weaker than it should be, and you have to be ready at the college level? What do you got to work on this year?
Defense. Definitely defense. Yeah. Ball handling has to be better too. Okay. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little weak with my ball handling, so that has to get better too. And I know I got to be in great shape this year and especially next year too. So there's a lot of areas to improve in. There's always ways to get better.
Okay. Now, so you signed early. You could have waited and seen if some other teams had interest, if other things were going around. But I do know it's a crowded field right now because of COVID. Some teams have a lot of players. And so what caused that decision? Did you always know if I can sign early, I'm going to sign early? Or were you thinking, I might wait? How did you decide just to sign this early?
One of the main reasons that I wanted to sign early was so that I could, I wouldn't say get it out of the way, but kind of get it out of the way and just focus on this season. So our goals for this season is win a state championship. So I really want to focus on that, and I don't want to have to worry about, what college I'm going to go to,
Yeah.
So just go ahead and get that out of the way, and then, just focus on this season.
See, now, Kelsey told me she was nervous, but she's already answered the question I had written down next. Will the season be easier with recruiting over? And you just answered that already. So, now I'm nervous because I have to come up with another question because I do have others. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
So since you're talking about focusing on this year, so there's going to be team goals and personal goals. And I know, Kelsey, from watching you, team goals come first. What are the team goals for the Lady Indians this year?
Definitely number one, state championship. We lost 2 seniors last year, so a lot of experience is coming back. We're excited. We know what it's going to take. We made it farther than you know, what everybody thought we were going to. Nobody
right.
expected us to make it that far. So we're all hungry. We want to get back there. So definitely state championship. We want that sub-state game at home this year. We had to travel last year. We want that sub-state home environment, district championship. You know, go undefeated in the district. Nothing gets better.
Sounds like you got a few goals for the team. Now,
Yeah.
do you have, other than improving the defense, is there some other personal goals that you have going into this next year?
It would be hard. I don't know if I'd be able to do it again, but I'd like to try to beat my own three-point record. That would be nice.
In a game, single game?
Yeah.
And that is?
11.
11.
Yep. So
11.
It's
crazy. Okay, yeah, I remember. I mean, we were just sitting
Yeah.
there, and she says in a game, it was in two quarters, basically. I mean, because we were up so far, you didn't play much of the second half. So, chance.
Yeah, there's a chance. It would be super hard, but it'd be cool to do it.
It would definitely be cool to do it.
cool.
Yeah. Okay, Kelsey. I'm just going to tell you something real quick, a story you may not know, and it's a story you won't have to do. But I've been calling games a while, and so when your dad played football, one of the most impactful things that I ever saw was after his final high school football game. We did the post game, everything was over, and Mark and I were walking down looking for your dad. He was very special, always has been very special to both of us. And we couldn't find him. We walked in the locker room. He was sitting, still fully dressed in his uniform, and he said, "I don't even want to take this off." That's going to happen this year for you. The good news is you're going to be putting on another uniform. He wasn't doing that. But just looking ahead, does that help you, or does that help you to be motivated for this season, to know that at the end of it, it's going to be the last time you take that off? What's that? What do you think about that?
I don't know. I guess it does make it a little easier because not many people get to go on and play college basketball. But I've always, been a Lady Indian, wore that United jersey, and gosh, I'm thinking about it right now. It's making me a little emotional, but I don't want to leave this team. I'm going to try to focus on them this year, make the best of it, because it's going to be hard. I think about senior night sometimes, and it tears me up. I don't want to do it, but high school is going to come to an end. So I guess it does, kind of help.
So may as well do it with a state championship.
Might as well do it with a state championship.
That way you can wear that uniform as long as you possibly can.
Yeah.
I think you're not the only one that's dreading seeing it. It's exciting that you're going to get to put on that next uniform, and we're all going to be watching that too. But that's 2023, 2024. 2022, 2023, we got one more year of one of our favorite Lady Indians. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, Ben.
Okay, Kelsey, before we let you go, I just got one thing to say, and that is we need you to step up your game. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about on the basketball court because that speaks for itself. Kelsey represents Oneida on our Pigskin Picking panel. Caitlin Butts is sitting over here. She represents Scott High. We can't let Mark Matthews win this thing because his head is going to be so big. It won't fit in Kevin Akers' van when these guys go to football games on Friday nights.
I do need to step it up. I had that. Week 1 was good. The rest of them not so much. But I guess there's still time.
There's still time.
We
Absolutely.
can get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's still time. But you are our hope. We're relying on you to knock off Mark Matthews.
I'll try my best.
All right, Kelsey, good luck this year in your senior year.
Thank you.
And I hope you achieve all those personal goals and team goals that you guys have set for yourselves. All right, we'll take another break. When we come back, we'll take a look at this week's games as the roundtable continues. Welcome back to the roundtable on the IH Sports Network, live from El Rey. I'm Ben Garrett, Tim Smith, Rick Keaton, and we have reached the part of the show that typically comes last, and that is where we take a look ahead to this week's games. This week we're bumping it up because we've got a pre-recorded ending to this show, which of course is Sparky Woods and Tim Smith's interview with him. So as we take a look ahead to next week's games, this is only our second week doing it in this format, and this is becoming, it was a fan favorite last week, let's just put it that way. So we're joined by Scott High cheerleader Chloe Tucker, and we're joined by Oneida cheerleader Nevaeh Carl. Now you guys go to two different schools, but obviously you're very familiar with one another. You guys cheered together in middle school. Both of you were at Birchfield. Okay, so we did this last week, and I said I'm going to ask the cheerleaders each week, because I got in trouble. You know Olivia Rector, okay? I said last week that she growled at me, and maybe she didn't really growl at me, but she got a little testy when I said that cheerleading wasn't a sport. I didn't really say that cheerleading wasn't a sport, but she thought that's where I was going. So what I want you to do first, and then I want to ask you, Nevaeh, I want you to tell everybody why cheerleading is a sport.
What we do at like Scott High and Oneida, I wouldn't consider the things we do competitive, which makes it a sport, but there are competitive teams out there, which makes cheer a sport.
Why is it a sport?
I'd have to agree with Chloe, but I do feel like we're like mentally, physically, we're like dedicated, and like we're like the crowd depends on us. The football players depend on us to keep the crowd up. I wouldn't necessarily say like what we do is competitive, but we practice. Like Leah said last week, we practice, we give it our all, and
That's such an unfair question. I'm just going to throw in here. Why wouldn't we just say, Ben, why is it not a sport? You prove it's not, because, I mean, are we going to do this every week? Or are we going to make the cheerleaders prove? Thank you, Rick.
Great question, Tim. Yeah, Ben, you're on the spot.
Well, I never said it wasn't a sport. Okay. Anyway, back to my line of questions. This is my turn.
Good. Maybe we're past that question.
Wait your turn. You guys are both seniors, okay? So I was just giving them a chance to build up cheerleading. You guys are both seniors. This is your final year cheering, and we're coming up to the end of football season. So you got basketball season after that. What are you still hoping to experience as you go through this final year of being on the cheer squad?
I just really, I don't know, like, football is probably my favorite. Like, I love basketball, but it's just something about football, like just cheering, and I just want to just continue, and I want to, like, leave. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm really going to miss the people that I cheer with, and I just really want to have fun and like just make it, like where like I look back and I was like, I really had the greatest time cheering. So like I just really want to like give it my all.
And Chloe, do you have a favorite, football versus basketball?
Not a favorite, no.
So you're just going to roll out of football into basketball, which starts almost immediately after football ends, and you're not going to skip a beat. It's just a continuation of the same thing?
Yeah, not the same thing, different environment, but we do the same thing.
Okay.
I have one, if I could.
Okay.
So the football thing, temperature controlled year-round in basketball. That's no problem. Football, I mean, as far as my observation, you're sweating to death if you're like me at the first couple of football, and then by the last two, you're freezing. How do you deal with that? Chloe, you go first. Is there a way to deal with that, or do you just suffer through it?
At the beginning of the game, I mean, once it starts getting cool, you stay in your uniform, but we make changes with our uniforms. We get warm-ups, or we get a sweatshirt to wear.
Okay.
We do the same, and then and then we wear like our mids, like our turtlenecks, like if it gets cold, and then we don't like it in the beginning because it's like 90 degrees.
Well, that's what I need to start doing then.
Okay, you would look good dressed that way. Yeah. All right, guys, let's pick some football games. Do you guys keep up with high school football around East Tennessee, or do you just watch Scott High and you just watch Oneida and you kind of leave it at that?
I keep up with Scott High and ours, obviously, but that's about it.
Okay, well, then this is going to be great. Okay, so, and I told Leah Terry last week that it was a little bit unfair because all the teams that Oneida's familiar with was off, and this week, just the same for you, it's kind of unfair because Scott High's playing, obviously, but Anderson County's off, Southdale's off, Carter's off, but it sounds like you're not familiar with them anyway, so it doesn't really matter. All right, we're going to start with Wartburg playing at Rockwood. This is a game that is important for the Oneida Indians as Wartburg comes into this game at 2-5. Rockwood is at 4-3. That game is going to be played at Rockwood. The Tigers, of course, coming off that big win over Oneida 2 weeks ago. And I'll start with you, Nevaeh. Wartburg at Rockwood, who have you got in that game?
I think probably Rockwood.
Okay. Because if Wartburg were to win, Tim Smith, then you start getting a little nervous if you're an Oneida fan. Am I right about that? Because do you think in a tiebreaker situation that it could work out where Wartburg could slip in?
I mean, it's really hard for me to think in that situation.
Here, I'll answer the question for you. Probably not.
I'm just trying to keep the drama alive, guys. Chloe, who do you have, Wartburg or Rockwood?
Rockwood.
Okay. Now, this is the only region game in Scott High's region this week that between, or I'm sorry, it's not. There are a couple others, but it's one of the few games, and that would be Gibbs playing at York Institute. This is another team from Oneida's region as well. Gibbs is 4-3. York Institute is 5-2. I'll start with you, Chloe. Who have you got, Gibbs or York?
Gibbs.
Okay. Okay.
Gibbs.
So we're all in agreement that Gibbs is going to defeat York. Pretty good football team in York, but Gibbs is a pretty good football team as well. Okay, so now it gets real. Got Scott High going to Fulton. Fulton is not the Fulton team that we're all used to from years past, but they're starting to come back, and they're a pretty good football team. So Scott and Fulton, you're on the spot now.
I told Clayton I wouldn't hurt his feelings, but we are down players who are beneficial on the team, so probably Fulton.
And it's a road game, you know? So, yeah okay. So Scott or Fulton?
I hope Scott wins, but probably Fulton.
Okay. And we're not going to let anybody hold your answers against you, by the way. All right. Oneida, Monterey.
Fulton is the Falcons, so you never can count on it.
Says the Atlanta fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Oneida, Monterey. Now, this is a huge game for Oneida. Oneida is 3-4. Monterey's 5-2. I'm going to guess that cheerleaders are just like the rest of us. Nobody wants to make a 4-hour road trip to start the playoffs. So you need Oneida to win this week. They're going to Monterey. Monterey is coming off of a 30-21 win over Lakeway Christian. Who's going to win this game Friday night?
We are.
Okay. Confident.
Oneida,
You're
yes.
confident.
I'll say Oneida.
Okay. So
I don't know how either one plays, so.
Oneida is going to beat Monterey on Friday night, and I'm going to throw one more out at you. This is not a high school game, but this is the game that everybody in East Tennessee is talking about this week, and that is number 3 Alabama, 6-0, coming to Knoxville against number 6 Tennessee, 5-0. Alabama or Tennessee, who wins this week?
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Go Vols. All right, Rick and Tim, let's talk real briefly about this week's games. Oneida goes to Monterey. We'll start with that. What does Oneida have to do to win at Monterey?
They got to stop Monterey from getting to the edge, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have to pass to open up the run.
Okay. And Rick, Scott High going to Fulton. What does Scott High need to do on Friday night?
Contain the edge. I mentioned earlier, find some way to neutralize the quarterback, Jackson. He's the cat that last year I watched one highlight film of him. He cut back across the field about 5 times, picking up a touchdown from 75 or 80 yards. And defensive players, they just can't keep up when he's making those cuts. So contain and limit the quarterback and hope that he has to take an ACT test the next morning and maybe doesn't even play.
Okay. All right. Scott High playing at Fulton on Friday night. Oneida is at Monterey on Friday night. 2 road games this week. Scott kicks off at 7. Oneida kicks off at 8. And we'll have both broadcast on the IH Sports Network. Chloe Tucker and Nevaeh Carl, thank you guys for joining us and for representing your 2 cheerleading squads in your high schools. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to have Tim Smith sit down with Sparky Woods, former Oneida Indian. Welcome back to the Roundtable on the IH Sports Network, live from El Rey. It is time for our Black Cat Legend of the Game segment, brought to you by the Black Cat Antiques and Collectibles on Main Street. Collectibles on Main Street, yes. I should say. Tim, you and I made a trip over to Chapel Hill, North Carolina this past week.
That's right. We were interviewing Sparky Woods. I'm going to get to the story on why that happened in just one moment. I just want to recap probably the most known things about Sparky Woods by most folks is his coaching career. So bear with me as I move around on this intro. But he began coaching as a graduate assistant at the University of Tennessee in 1976. He had just graduated from Carson Newman College, where he played for 4 years there for Coach Dal Sheely. And he coached at Tennessee as an assistant, Kansas, North Alabama, a stop where he met his future wife, Iowa State, a stop where he met his future current employer, Mac Brown. They were on staff together. And then he went to Appalachian State. Mac Brown was the head coach. Mac Brown moved on, and Coach Woods was named the head coach at Appalachian State and had such a successful career there that when South Carolina had an opening, they invited him in 1989. And he coached South Carolina for 2 years and then joined the SEC and continued as the Gamecocks coach until 94. He coached as an assistant for the New York Jets and in 1 year in the pro, and then he went back to college, and that's where he's remained since then, an assistant at Memphis, Virginia, Mississippi State, Alabama. And then from 2008 to 2014, he was the head coach at Virginia Military Institute. He left there and went into coaching again in Richmond. He coached the Spiders. And then in 2019, his old friend Mac Brown, who he previously served 2 stops with, invited him to come to the University of North Carolina. He has turned that program into a powerhouse in the ACC. They're 5-1 right now, had a big win this past Saturday night, and he's the senior advisor in charge of the analytics. So just a word about Coach Woods here. He played from 1968 to 1971 on the Oneida High School team. In those 4 years, Oneida won 36 games, lost 7, and tied 1. In the regular season, they only lost 3 games. Those other 4 losses were all postseason. In the first year, it was a bowl game. In seasons 69, 70, and 71, they were in the Final Four in the state of Tennessee, and they lost to the eventual state champion. And you'll hear some about that in the interview as well. Just as far as a record setter in football for Oneida, he had the most interceptions in a season with 8 in 1971, and in 1971 twice in 2 separate games. He had the most interceptions in a game. 3 times he intercepted the opponents in 1971 in 2 separate games. Teams didn't pass a lot in 1971, and they passed a lot less if he was on the opposite side of the field. So, this was Kevin's idea. I'm just going to tell you, when we first started doing the Legends of the Game, Kevin texted me the week before, and he said, "Who you got?" A lot of people are speculating. They think it might be Sparky Woods. And I thought, are you kidding? They're thinking we're gonna be able to do that quickly. And then as we thought about it, we thought, well, why not give it a shot? And so I contacted Coach Woods through the office there. He returned my call the following day, and we set up an opportunity to go down and meet with him. And Ben can confirm we were way too early, as I always am anywhere I go. We were planning to meet with him at 1 o'clock. We got there 11:15, and we were just going to try to wait. And he came right down and started giving us a tour from the beginning. It was like we were friends of family the whole time we were there. He just took us around, and I told Coach Woods that the goal for this was we know the records, we know the Wikipedia, we know the things that happen, but we don't know him, a lot of us. I had never met him, and I wanted to know more about him. And as I met him and talked with him, and as you're going to find out in this interview, he hasn't been a resident of Oneida in a long time. He's been back to Oneida from time to time, but he's been busy, as you can hear, in the coaching realm and in doing other things. But one thing is very clear as you listen to this interview is Oneida hasn't left him. And I would use the term Oneida courses through Coach Woods. And he was very generous with his time, and we have some interesting, entertaining, funny, and touching stories that he's going to share with us. So we've got part 1 tonight. We'll come back and do part 2 next week. So this will be our sign-off for the roundtable tonight, but stay right here because we're cutting right to part 1 of our interview with Oneida legend, Sparky Woods. All right, Coach Woods, I thank you for joining us and to sit down and talk with us today a little bit. We want to learn about an Oneida legend, which you are, but not just to recap what made you the legend, because sometimes legends lose fact and become more fiction than fact. So the goal today is for people to know you and to know not just about you, but who you are and certainly your thoughts and feelings of the era and the times and the different things we'll talk about. I did pull out a quote from one of the articles I read and you said, "I'm the kind of guy that doesn't want to live in the past, but go ahead to the future." So we're not going to live in it, but I do want to revisit it just a little bit and talk about some things. So on my questions, the first one I had, and I had to ask some folks about your birthplace, but let me just start at the very beginning. Your given name, I believe I'm correct, is Philip Perry Woods. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So were you named after someone?
No, I think my dad was wanting a hunting dog or something. I have a brother named Don, who's a normal name, and I have a sister named Deborah, which is a normal name. And how I got Sparky, I thought when I got 60 years old and bald-headed, they'd quit calling me that, but I think I'm going to always be that. I really wish I had a great story about how it came about, but I think, like a lot of people, I was born in the clinic there, actually in Dr. Leeds, I believe, and my mother, for whatever reason, they didn't see me for most of the day, and asked my dad, and he said, it's like a little Sparky or something, and it's what it was called from then on. And I've had a couple people, my grandfather kind of thought it was a little bit, he'd call me Phillip, and then I coached at Virginia for George Welsh. He wasn't a big nickname man, and so he called me Phillip until he wanted something, then he would holler Sparky at me or something. But I've always been that, and like I said, it's probably been more good for me than not, because it is a catchy name, easy to remember, and some funny stories with it at times. But it was, it's kind of been that. And I remember when I got ready to graduate, Mr. Carson brought me down and said, "What is your name?" They had like 3 or 4 different files. They had a Sparky Phillip and a Phillip Sparky and a Phillip Perry, and so I had to tell him what my name was.
But anybody that used that's pretty much faded.
Yeah, I don't remember ever being. If you hollered, "Hey Phillip," I probably wouldn't look around. I'd never been called anything but Sparky.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about growing up and where you grew up geographically in the county a little bit, and tell me a little bit about your parents. You've spoken, but a little bit more.
My dad, I grew up in about 3 miles south of Oneida. I think we had a Helenwood address actually, but my mother, we lived in a restaurant. It was called the Rock House Cafe, and my grandfather had built it. My grandfather was a Pentecostal preacher and a shoe repairman, and most of his boys became shoe repairmen. My dad was the oldest of the 10 children from my grandfather, and my grandfather moved to Oneida from Harlan, Kentucky. He was a coal miner in Harlan and moved down there, and he and my grandmother, like I said, my dad was the oldest of 10. His name was Onis Woods, and he was a truck driver and a tough guy, but a good guy. And my mother, Christine, who I adored, she was a hard worker. She worked ran the restaurant and raised us children. And then I think in her latter years before she retired, she worked in the school cafeteria at Oneida, and so she knew all the kids and probably gave way more food than we should have or something. But she was super, and only died a few years ago, and all. And then I have a brother, Don, who was an outstanding player at Oneida and a great coach as well, and went on to win a bunch of football games in Alabama, where he spent most of his time. His wife was Nancy Roy, and she was a majorette at Oneida, and they graduated together. And then I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me, who played basketball at Oneida, named her Deborah, and she's Debbie Solansky now. She has 2 sons, and her husband actually is a teacher and coach at Morristown West High School. Her oldest son is a dentist in Morristown, and her youngest son is the deep snapper for the University of Tennessee, and worked on there and earned that position. And for 3 years, I watched him snap that ball against Alabama and Georgia and all of them. And he's done a terrific job, so I'm really proud of him. But we grew up right there in that little restaurant. The school bus would turn around there, and I rode the same bus from the 1st grade until I graduated. Mr. Carson was our driver, and he would turn around in our driveway, and we would go to school from there. And I went to Oneida from 1st grade on. But anyway, that's my family, and my brother's still alive, and my sister is, and they're doing well. My parents have both passed away now.
So, and I have a question that's going to relate to this later, but just a quick ask. So was that the southernmost point of the bus route? It turned around and went back north? Okay, now I'm going to come back to that, okay?
Yes, sir.
So, so tell me just a little bit, your parents, were they sports fans or just sports fans because you all played sports, or what was that?
Really, they weren't. In fact, it was kind of a challenge to get to play. My grandfather was real stern, and so my dad was the oldest of that, and he kind of thought work, and he went probably, I think he went to the 8th grade. My mother had the 7th grade, and he was in World War II, and after the war they got married and then moved in down there and lived there from then on. They weren't. My brother probably started it. My brother was the first Woods that I'm aware of that ever went to college, and he kind of inspired me and others to do the same. He was an outstanding basketball player. In fact, he was the most valuable player in that conference that we played in there, and a good player. He was a good big brother to me, still is, and all. And then he kind of probably was a bigger influence for me. But I tell you, one of the things that probably inspired me to coach was, and when I say coach, I just think coach is a teacher. That's all it is, really. But Coach Williamson, Blackie Williamson, came there, and he started the junior high athletic program, junior high football program. We didn't have a junior high program until he came, and he got to some booster club or the Kiwanis club or somebody to buy us all uniforms, and so we all started playing football when I was in the 6th grade. That's when he came, and he just loved me when probably I didn't deserve to be. Like all teachers that I had up there kind of were the same way. He would check my grade card, and you can do better than this, and you can, this kind of thing. And my parents, they were wonderful, but they were just trying to survive, so they didn't take a lot of interest in that. My dad thought go to school and then go to the military and then get out and do whatever I did or something probably. But they did come. My mother never came to any football games, but she would come to the basketball games. But my dad would come to the game. I remember when we first started playing, he'd said, you come home. You be on that bus today. There was work to do around that restaurant, cleaning, carrying out bottles or something. There's little gas pumps there and stuff. So Mother had her hands full keeping up with that. So I'm sure he thought I need to get home and work. But he would say, you be on that bus. And I said, well, Dad, I got football practice. And he would mumble something about what's that going to do for you or something and all. But he did come, and as we won, and people would notice the fact that his sons were doing good. And I had it a lot easier than my brother. He was pretty tough on my brother and stuff. But I think that athletics probably because the people that were in athletics, the coaches, Coach Williamson, Coach Daniel later, had the biggest influence on me and made me want to try to figure out where I was going. And they would kind of like parents as well.
Was Coach Williamson, was that the first time you touched a football? Had you played before, or was that the first?
No, it was, we at that time, my brother, when he was like 6 years older than me, and I think he started playing football when he was in 7th grade, but he was on the varsity team, so you didn't play until you got to be a 9th grader, but you could go practice with them and stuff. I don't remember us ever having a junior varsity team, but we'd have most boys would play, and so he was on that. But Coach Williamson was the first one to ever start a junior high program where we had, and at that time they had it divided up by weight limits, so you had 2 games a night. You had like what they called it, 90 pounds or 95 pounds and under or over, and so they'd play those games. And he got the uniforms there, got the community to do it. It's probably a pretty big expense then, with gear for football and all that. And so then we started playing other schools. At that time, it was before Scott County High School had merged, so you had Robbins and you had Norma and you had Huntsville, and only Huntsville played football. The other 2 did not. So we'd play them in basketball, but until they became Scott County High School, we only played Huntsville, which was a great fun game, real rivalry, and everybody in town come to the game and stuff. It's fun.
Did some of the players come from those other schools like they do now? Like sometimes if a school doesn't have football, some of the other area schools, somebody can go play for them. Did they do that then?
I don't remember that. I remember the biggest thing I remember is that the people I started the first grade with were kind of marched through. Now, Coach Williamson, I think I'm the first person in history, probably, or at least the state of Tennessee, that ever repeated the 8th grade, what they call redshirting, and he told me I was going to do it. So he told my mother he was going to do it. So my mother said, if he says it, that's what you're going to do. So I don't even remember having a choice. I just did it. Now I was younger. I started first grade when I was 5, I think. So I was younger, but I just did whatever he told me to do, you know. And he always had my best interest in mind. But so a lot of people now have held kids back, you know, for, you know, age or whatever reasons. I don't think I was the first one, because there was a lot of people had mixed feelings about it. Some teachers and some thought that was doing the wrong thing, but it turned out to be the best thing for me. I think when it helped me in school. I was a little better student then, later on, and I think when I was a junior, I might have weighed 160 pounds, and then when I was a senior, I was like 185 or 90. So I wouldn't have had an opportunity to play college football if I had to leave after what would have been my junior year, you know.
Did you go to games when your brother played? And if so, I'm sure you looked up to him. Were there other players you remember that you looked up to on those teams?
Yeah, I did. My neighbor, we lived right beside us, was Galloway Motel, and there was a guy named Sammy Galloway, and he was the quarterback. I remember he wore number 35. He's funny now, but he was a really good player, and he was good to me. We were next door neighbors. He was a little older than my brother Don, but he was you know, I admired him because he was our quarterback, you know, on the team, and so I'd go whenever I could, and then I remember Bobby Lee Smith and some of those guys, players. Donnie Carson was a good player, played quarterback, wore number 00. I remember before they outlawed it, now they brought it back. But, you know, Oneida always had such great pride, and everybody that wore the orange and white was something. So I was impressed and admired that. And again, the people who paid attention to me the most were people who would involve me in athletics, and I don't know what I would have done if it hadn't been for athletics. So it certainly was a real help me in all those. They taught me how to play football, but they taught me so many other lessons in life.
So to your remembrance, was Oneida football always a big deal?
It was, to my memory. Yeah, we would play, and we were always winning 8 games or so every year, it seems like. Most of the time we played 10 then, but yeah, I remember great pride in Oneida in football and basketball, actually. And we only had the football and basketball and girls basketball, but I remember Betty Jeffers, she would score 60 points. That's when they played 6-person basketball. They had 3 guards and 3 forwards, and she was fantastic. And I remember Ben Daniel was the head football coach, but he was also the girls basketball coach. And then Coach Williamson helped him with the football, and he coached the Little League too. So he would coach the high school and then turn around and bring us down there and coach us, you know. And I know he didn't get paid much money, but he was great. He just loved kids, and so we all benefited from it. But I can remember Ben would get, when we were like 6th, 7th grade, he would get us, the boys, to practice against the girls basketball. We thought that was great, you know, but they were good. Gosh, you know, Diane Phillips and some of those, they'd knock you out of there, buddy. They were tough, and so he thought getting these boys to play against them would help toughen them up. Yeah. I think they really helped toughen us up. You know, it was good.
So I was going to ask, in the middle school or the junior high, as it was called then, did you play many games, and do you remember much about the games?
The first year he started the program, we did not. We played 2 inter-squad games, and I think he got every boy out that was there in school in the 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, and when we played. But the year after that, we started playing, and we won. We won. We would play. I remember losing one game, I think, when I was in 7th grade, maybe one or two in 8th grade. That's all I remember. We win and all, because we not always won. They won long before I got there, and won after I've left. They've done. It's all about that town and that school and the people there. They're winners, and so we took great pride in that, and great pride in wearing that uniform.
So you played, your freshman year was the fall of 1968.
Okay.
And then you played the 4 years. In the freshman year, do you remember like the first high school game that you appeared in? Did you play as an 8th grader any for high school?
No.
Okay.
So played junior high in 8th grade. Curtis Thompson. Curtis was our quarterback, wore number 41, and left-handed, tough, and I kind of was his backup, which meant don't play me, play him. He was good and all, but I was little, but occasionally they put me in, let me play defense. You know, I'd play, we got ahead or something, but Curtis is a really good player and a great friend and leader to me. And he was only a year or two older than me, but I guess I started my sophomore year, but he had graduated, so he's probably 3 years older than me. But anyway, he was our quarterback, and then I played starting like the sophomore year, I think, sophomore, junior, senior year.
Yeah. So can you still remember, you know, a particular, and I know with the number of games, but just in the early games, the first time you remember stepping out, was it under lights? Was it a day game?
No, we play all at night.
All at night.
And I can remember we would dress in the gym, and I could hear those cleats on that sidewalk as you walk down by the school, and you'd go under that tunnel and run through that with all the people there. It's so exciting, and it was great. And you know, everybody you knew in town was just pulling for you and call you by your name and stuff. And I remember, like, we had a really talented team my junior year. We had Steve Phillips, who I thought probably was one of the best football players to ever play at Oneida High School. He was a dynamic player, explosive and fast, and led the state of Tennessee in scoring. Just a fantastic player. My dearest friend, too. We had a kid named Steve Blakely, who was my other dearest friend, and so we had Steve's, and Steve was a great player too. He was tough, and he could catch. He played like a little wingback position for us, and then he was such a good player on defense and all. And then they graduated. That was kind of the class I started with, and then when Coach held me back, I was kind of in that last class my senior year. But then we had Tony Terry, and he had a brother named Robbie Terry, and they were good players. Tony was a tackle on offense and a linebacker on defense, and he was the toughest kid in school, I thought, and great person, cared about our team all the time. And Robbie was younger than him, but started guard and played. And so we had some really good players, and I think it just kind of rubbed off too. I think we'd had good basketball in the past. I mentioned my brother's teams were good, but we had an outstanding basketball season with Mike Baker, who's David Sexton. You know, I was thinking about one time our 5 starters in basketball at Oneida High School. Chuck West became a principal in Dresden, Tennessee. We had a guy named Mike McBroom, who had started a great tool and die business. But then you had David Sexton, who's an ear, nose, and throat doctor. Mike Baker, who's a pharmacist. Think about that coming up, and me, you know, off of that starting 5 team. So just the football and basketball, everybody just pulled for each other. There was no animosity, and it was great. So,
did you love both sports equally, or is that a silly question?
I did. You know, basketball's fun. You get to play every 2 or 3 nights a week or something. But I really had a great appreciation and admiration for football. Actually, when I graduated, I had a number of basketball offers. I had one football offer. I had to Coach Daniel played at Carson Newman, and he took me over there and said, you need to look at this kid. And so they offered me a partial scholarship, and I think I had something like 40 offers to play basketball, all full scholarships. So my mama thought I was crazy, but I wanted to coach football. I knew I wanted to do that. I thought I wanted to coach that. So I said, well, Coach, I need to play it. So that's why I'm partial toward football, I guess. But as far as just fun, I had a great time playing basketball. We won 60 games or something, I think, when we were playing basketball there.
So you knew your senior year you wanted to coach football. How long had you known? When did you?
You know, my brother again became a coach, a high school football coach, and so I watched him, and that Don kind of pioneered that for me, and so I just felt like coaches in football had so much more to do with the outcome of the game than it did in basketball. At least that was my perception at the time. You know, here I am at the University of North Carolina. You guys say that quietly around here. But so I knew football coaching was kind of what I wanted to do, and that's what my brother did, you know, and he was he was an outstanding basketball player, but he chose to coach football and was a really outstanding football coach.
I do want to jump back just to your brother and sister just for a moment. It's your brother, an outstanding basketball player. What made him outstanding? What was his position? What made him the great player?
You know what he could do? He could shoot the ball. He would score. I never was a great scorer. We had a great shooter, and David Sexton, and then Mike Baker. He would always get double figures about every night. So they played me at point guard, and so it was, you know, I think I led the school record in assists with those two good players until Robert Wright broke the thing, and Robert was an outstanding player. He's younger than me. He broke it. It didn't take him but about a year to break all my records. He was in there getting after it real fast. But anyway, I think that the football I'm most proud of because I really admired that sport. I admired people that played it. It took courage to play it, I thought. And there's a lot of great athletes in this world that don't play football because I think the difference is objective is not to get the ball, but get the person that has the ball. And I've always thought that was a little different. And it separated a lot of great athletes from not wanting to play it because of that thing. But it worked out good for me, and I knew I wanted to coach, so it had my interest more.
Now, with your sister, you know, I recall her picture hanging in the hall. So she's a very good basketball player.
She was an outstanding basketball player.
Was she on the first state tournament team?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I should.
Yeah,
you know, she's the best of our family and the least, and gets the least attention. You know, but she's a competitor. Doggone, she is, and she was. You know, Don, my brother, was 6 years older than me, and she was 10 years younger than me. So he was gone. He was like in high school and left before she started. And I was quite a bit older than her. But I'm so proud of her. She's always accomplished whatever she set out to do.
Did you play games at home? Did you compete against each other?
Well, yeah. Again, there's quite a bit of difference in our age, so I can remember having to rebound and throw it back. It's probably why Don was a lot better shooter than me, because I'd have to go get the ball and throw it back to him, and if it hit that root under that tree, I'd have to really run to get it, you know. But he could shoot it. He was a good shooter, and all. I was never as good a shooter as he was, but I could run and move. I'd usually get to cover one of their better players and all, but it was just great growing up. And Oneida is just all about that. I would encourage any kids to try to get involved in the athletic department if they could there, because there's just such pride in it, and it's great. It's just everybody that I was on teams with just went on to do good things, I think.
I want to go back to Steve Phillips real quick, just because you mentioned him, and Steve went on to play in college.
University of Kentucky. Yeah.
And what made him so good at football?
You know, Steve, I can just take my recollection of him. His wife could tell you more about him, but Steve really all he ever wanted to do was be a farmer. he loved to be around the animals and stuff. But Steve was a gifted player. He was explosive. He was strong and really never, he lifted those hay bales, but never, never was a weight program or anything. But he was fast, and he was just talented. He was explosive. When he got that ball, look out. He could run by you or through you or around you, and he was tough. And so I knew at an early age in football, get the ball to Steve however we could, because he was going to make touchdowns. And he was just gifted and had a team attitude. Again, he probably knew less about how talented he was of anybody. He was so talented, and I thought looking back that he was clearly the best football player that I remember through the times at 09. I know there have been some great ones come through since, but he was the most talented one that I remember growing up and playing with at any time. I can remember him catching a punt on the 10-yard line in Neyland Stadium for Kentucky and going 90 yards with that thing and outrunning every one of those guys and stuff. So he could have played. Now, his dad died when he was in college, and he lost interest and actually kind of just finished school. He was in love with Jane and came home and got married, I think, while he was in college and stuff. But his family owned a big farm up in Brimstone, and he loved that. And he picked me up on the way. That's what we did every Saturday and every day in the summertime, So, but he was the most gifted of all, I think. He was a good basketball player. He kind of played basketball like he did football. He was kind of ready, fire, aim. Sometimes he wouldn't, but he was quick feet and strong and a sudden boy. He could play. He could play now. He was a great athlete.
You sometimes see players that work themselves up before a game, try to fire themselves up, and sometimes you see players that are almost unrecognizable when they're playing sports from who they are when they're not playing sports. Right. And not Steve in particular. Of course, I'd love to know about Steve, but were there any players that you think of that fit that, or was that a thing when you all were playing, just kind of trying to fire yourself up? Or
I don't remember that. I think Coach Daniel and Coach Williamson kind of, you again, maybe why I'm interested in coaching, you kind of take on the personality of your coach. Both of them were fierce competitors, but I don't ever remember, a rah-rah speech much. It was, we're going to play our best, and we're going to play as a team. We represent our town and our school, and when you pull this jersey on, what it means to the others that have worn it. It was just, they were such good coaches, and I thought our team took that on. I can remember we were down at Coalfield and we were playing bad in the first half. We got behind, and I remember Coach Daniel really kind of dressed us all down at halftime and told us he was disappointed in us. We were better than that, and we did come back and win the game and all, but I really don't remember him other than being a positive coach, and he didn't accept average. If you didn't hustle, he'd call you out on it and stuff. But he was coach. I was scared to death of him, but he was always great to me, and stuff.
So he didn't use it as a gimmick, but he used it when it was necessary.
Yeah, I thought he was a great teacher. Again, he just taught football instead of math or English or something, and he taught importance of team, and we just we were proud to be Oneida Indians, and we just couldn't lose to anybody because of that. We let the whole town down, and you don't just drive through Oneida, you got to kind of drive to Oneida. So we thought we represented everybody there, and he just made us have such pride in our town and school, which lasts till now, still. So.
back to was there ever a player that just was almost unrecognizable in sports from who they were?
Well, Steve was not there kind as he could be, you know, and but you didn't want to challenge him because he was a rolling ball butcher knives when you challenged him, you know, and he would accept your challenge real fast. And I think they all were kind of that way. I don't remember anybody that I disliked. I liked everybody. You know, everybody was just team, and I don't remember anybody feeling like they were above the team or more than the team. And I think it was just because the way we were taught from probably Miss Slayton's first grade till we left there. You know, it was a great school to go to because pride in the school was real, and I can remember several guys. Tony Terry, I mentioned, was the toughest guy in school, but nobody, it was not like he was running around being a tough guy. He was nice as he could be, you know. Come on, I'll give you a ride, or, you know, hey, don't forget your homework here or something, you know. But on Friday night now, he would light you up. He would play, and he was not afraid of anybody, and he was a tough guy. I respected him so much.
I read a quote. It was when you became head coach at South Carolina. It was a publication, and I absolutely love this quote. I don't know that you may have heard it somewhere else. It may not be directly,
Probably,
but the idea of it, I firmly believe in. And you said discipline is not something you do to someone; it's something you do for someone.
Right.
And I feel like from what you've told me so far that I kind of know the answer to this, but can you expand on the origin, or was it all of these folks you're mentioning that combined into that philosophy, or can you pinpoint one area, or just something about that?
Well, I never felt like, there's probably a lot of times when I was in junior high and Coach was making us run extra or do extra things that I probably didn't appreciate it when I was that age. But it was never something I ever questioned, or I never felt like that. I always felt like that if it wasn't good for us, he wasn't going to do it. And he being Blackie, he being Ben, he being all those teachers and principals and all. So I felt like and I probably needed discipline more than any, but I never felt like nobody was ever trying to teach me a lesson or something. They were teaching me a lesson, but it was a good lesson. And yeah, I think all that came out of there. And again, I had wonderful parents who loved me, but that was never a part of theirs. That all came from teachers and coaches in Oneida, you know, I think so.
Your freshman, sophomore, and junior years, you had played Huntsville. Huntsville, from what I understand, we've talked to Mike Swain, we've talked to Ray Porter, some quarterbacks that came before you.
Sure.
And Huntsville was a game that they pointed to many times, and so I would ask you just a little bit about those games against Huntsville, and was that the rival, or were there other teams? You know, if they could be the rival, but were there also other teams that you knew, hey, we're getting ready to play this team this week, we better be ready?
I tell you, and I think this is probably for those people that you mentioned, like Mike Swain and Ray Porter and Sammy Galloway, those guys who played before us. But clearly, Huntsville, you know, if you're going to rob the bank, that'd been a good day to rob it, because everybody was at that game, you know, and wherever it was, either in Oneida or Huntsville. And so it was clearly the rival. However, because of what people before us had done, we seemed to be everyone else's rival. You know, I had an opportunity to coach at Alabama, and when you're at Alabama, you're going to get everybody's best game when you're playing, when you're there. I felt that way about Oneida High. Wherever we went, you know, here comes the Big Orange, and and you know, York Institute was a tough school, and they were a much larger school than we were at the time. It was before, again, classifications, and you played where you could drive to, kind of, I guess, and stuff. But I think everyone respected the Oneida Indians, and so I was proud to wear that uniform too. But I don't ever remember going anywhere that it wasn't a big deal to that other team.
To that point, I work with a gentleman. His name is John Branham, and a lot of people I've talked to, they have a Sparky Woods story, because of your success, and so they remember things. And so one of the stories John told me, he played for the Jacksboro Eagles,
right?
And he was talking about a time when you all were playing. Steve Phillips was on the team, so it must have been your junior year or sophomore year. But he distinctly remembers you were headed his way, and he had the angle, and his words popped you real good. And as he was taking you down, he thought, he's going to remember that one. And he said that then you jumped up and you said, hey, that was a good hit, and ran back to the huddle. So I'm going to ask for him, did you do that in a mental way, or?
No, I bet he was a good tackle. I bet he knocked me on my can. I bet it was good,
But were you trained to don't let it show, jump up?
Yeah. I thought that's what this game's about,
Yeah.
So I probably did look to remember what his number was and see if I could get him or something. But it was, you had Jacksboro and the Follett there and all. So then it was. They were always tough. Those people over there too. Those teams were tough, I thought. But I think, be competitive. Again, Coach, I never felt like we did. I thought we did things that he taught me how to play with your face up and things that created safety. Coaches did, but now they expected you to. It was a contact sport.
Sure.
It wasn't a dance. And I remember Coach saying plenty of times, dancing's a contact sport. This football's a hitting sport. You need to bring it when you come and stuff. So I wasn't going to be. I didn't want to sit in there on film with him on Monday and him point out to where I turned one down or something. He wanted to see us bring it.
Can you think of a player, if you don't know the name, of a number or just somebody on team, whatever, that you remember? Boy, that was tough.
Yeah, remember James Bates at Coalfield? I thought he was a competitive sucker too. He played quarterback and played on their basketball team, so we played against each other a lot. I had a lot of respect for him. He was a tough guy, and we beat him. We beat him every time, but it was never easy. And I thought he was tough, and he was at Coalfield and. There's several I'm sure that I'm forgetting, but Donald Sexton on our team was he was a fullback linebacker, and if you're in that tackling line and you're coming up with him, you knew he was going to hit you hard,
So in those seasons, those 4 seasons as an Oneida Indian, only 3 regular season losses. Yes, I mean. Pretty much that's Bill Jacobs' territory there too, as well. Sure. I mean, like you said, the trend had been set, but also at that time, traditionally there was a bowl game up to your freshman year. There was a bowl game, the JC Bowl that year, but then the TSSAA experimented, it would seem, because they just did it for 3 years and then moved the playoffs away and then brought them back later.
Really?
Yep. So for those 3 years, there were only 4 teams that made the playoffs. And for your sophomore, junior, and senior year, I'm telling you something but just for folks watching, you were a participant each of those years and wound up in that semifinal game facing the eventual state champions.
Hey, lucky us. I wasn't aware that they had left them and come back. As you pointed out, so I learned something there. But I remember those 3 years. I remember Sweetwater was a tough team. They had a tailback that went on to play at Auburn, I believe, and he was a good player. And then I remember playing against Sweetwater, and they had Kippy Brown and Anthony Oggs. And Anthony was a great tailback at Memphis State at that time, and Kippy played at Memphis as well and became a professional football coach till he retired. I remember that was a big game, and we never won the state championship, but you're right, we would always lose to the eventual winner of it and all. But I think looking back now, I think that Sweetwater and probably are all larger classifications now than they were then, because we only had 3 classifications then. And I think here, like in North Carolina, we may have 6 or 7, where at that time we had bigger gap among players. You had more kids at some schools.
Yeah, the sophomore year was South Pittsburgh. So
that was a single wing.
Right.
I remember being tired after that.
And they actually remained, they're single A. We're now double A. South Pittsburgh remains single A. And then the junior year was the Tennessee Prep Busters, which you were telling me something about.
Yeah, I think they were a reform school, actually, and they were tough, bunch of tough guys and stuff. And, I can remember that they didn't have film. So I remember we weren't able to see them until we looked at them across the field, and stuff. And it was a pretty good surprise because they were tough. They were a hard-nosed team and stuff, physical.
So your senior year, you graduated 72, your senior year of football 71, was the first year of the existence of a new school in the county. You alluded to it earlier. And hearkening back to another question I asked earlier, you said the southernmost point of the bus picked you up there near the Galloway Motel and you went back north to the Oneida School. Was there, how was that decision made early on to go to Oneida? Was it just because of the bus route? Or when the consolidation was coming through, what was some of the talk? Because some of the others have alluded to that and talked a little bit about it. What was it like?
The confusion was, am I supposed to go to this county school? Because I didn't want to change school, and especially for me, it was my last year of school and all. And they didn't make us, they let you continue to go where you wanted to. But I remember it was just, it was new, and thinking about consolidating all those 3 schools was interesting to me too. But never once did I think that I would change schools if I didn't have to. I will remember this, and I hope some really good people, I don't know where they are now, but there was 2 guys on our team. They were brothers. There was Donald Brooks and Ronald Brooks, I think. They lived right up there. They actually lived 2 or 3 doors back toward Oneida from me. And their sister, the older sister, actually would work for my mother in the restaurant. She was like a waitress in the summer and stuff. Her name was Ruby Brooks, beautiful girl. And Donald and Ronald were good players. Ronald was like a year younger than Donald. I hope I got that right. But Donald actually was, came to me and he said, "Sparky, we got to go down there." I said, "Gosh, we ain't going to be able to compete with those guys. They're going to have so many more players." So he'd kind of bought into that. Now, they had actually moved there, and they had gone probably to elementary school in Huntsville. So they probably didn't have that allegiance or loyalty that I did. But it just making sense to me. I said, I just can't believe we would do that. This is, you can't leave our school. Anyway, but they did. They did what I guess maybe was supposed to have happened, that they lived in the county, so they were going to the county school. But I remember us beating them, and that was a big deal. And I remember during the game, because he actually went through spring practice with us, and they had actually voted captains, and 3 of us, myself and I think Tony Terry and him. And then a tough decision. They were great guys, but they both chose to go to Scott County. And man, I thought that was tough. But I never, once I found out I didn't have to go, my next question was, are they going to bring the bus down here, or do I have to figure out how to get to school? Of course, they continue to run the bus route and all. So it was good to me. And now, years later now, I go back and I recognize what a nice job they're doing at Scott County, and some great people there, and I seen their little quarterback who's broke all kinds of records at some small college now and stuff, and so I'm just happy for the county and everything that way. But now for us, it was I would never thought about changing.